Where is Balake at?
My name's Blake.
Blake? What? Do you want to go to war, Balake? I'm for real. Ron.
Ron is back, everyone. Welcome back for more SPTV, where every day is a great day, not to be in a cult. It can be a little difficult to intro videos about serious, solemn subjects because I tend to be so kind of like upbeat and positive and gregarious. But the subject of today's video, not a happy subject, but the fact that the truth about it is being exposed in a book that has just been published is very good news for the world and very bad news for Scientology. There was a man, very famous and quite wealthy in Scientology, very famous in the Latin American countries, named Francisco Suarez. He was known as Frank. In fact, even in the Spanish countries, I believe he just went by Frank Suarez. Frank was essentially the Dr. Berg of the Latin American world. In fact, it's probably more accurate to say that Dr. Berg was the Frank Suarez of the United States. Because someone can fact check me on this, but I believe Frank Suarez got into the nutrition business before Dr. Eric Berg did. And the reason I use Dr. Eric Berg as comparable there is because they're both Frank Suarez and Dr. Berg were both high-level Scientologists. Frank Suarez is yet another tragic example of someone who gave their entire life a massive amount of money to going up to Scientology's highest level, only to have their sanity completely destroyed, their life completely destroyed, their mental health completely destroyed, and to have their life end in the tragedy of taking their own life. I mean, I personally know of 3 OT8s, operating Thetan level 8, the highest level a Scientologist can do. Scientology, a group that claims to have the only workable technology of the mind and the spirit, that going up Scientology's levels, going up the OT levels, becoming an OT, turns you into essentially a super being. You can't even say superhuman because Scientologists don't believe that we are human. But they believe that going up Scientology's OT levels essentially turns you into a god, cause over life. Independent of senior to the physical universe itself, the definition of sanity. And yet, Frank Suarez, after dedicating his entire life, untold millions of dollars to Scientology, ended up jumping off of a building and taking his life after having a psychotic break. Scientology kept him in isolation for at least 6 months on their cruise ship called the Free Winds. When they couldn't fix him, they left him to his own devices to die. Frank's son, Francisco, has now written a book about it. It's called The Halfway Bridge. It's available in English and in Spanish. Okay, I'm going to check the audio. Yeah, the audio is fine, guys. It's available in English and in Spanish. I'm going to share it here on Amazon. Francisco is about to do a huge media blitz in Puerto Rico and Mexico and South America. When he's done with that, we're going to do an in-studio interview here because Francisco lives not far from me. Scientology not only destroyed Frank Suarez's life, it destroyed his family. Frank has kids still in Scientology. Frank has kids not in Scientology. Scientology destroyed the Suarez family. And I want to share with you, this is the Instagram profile of his Scientologist son, Manuel Suarez. Manuel Suarez is a a wealthy Clearwater-based Scientologist. He and his Scientologist sister took over their father's business. Now, knowing how Frank died, sorry, guys. Knowing how Frank died, I want to share with you the Instagram post that his Scientologist son posted after his death. This is about almost 4.5 years ago. Sorry, guys. All right. Manuel Sweat says, it is with a broken heart that I would like to announce that my father, Frank Suarez, has left us this morning at the age of 71. My father had one major mission in his life above everything else: help others. As some of you may know, my story, this life, had a very dark period, and the person responsible for getting me out of that darkness and leading me down a lighted path was my father. My father wasn't only my father. He was everything to me: a business partner, a mentor, a friend. It's a little hard to face this reality, but I'm here communicating to all of you because the news of his passing is spreading like wildfire, especially in the Latin community. And I wanted you to hear directly from me. He lived an incredible life. He made an impact in the life of millions and millions of people. His videos were seen over 1 billion times. His books have been read by millions of people, and his technology has served hundreds of thousands of people across the world of Latin America. He dedicated his life to making everyone else's life better. He leaves behind a legacy of knowledge that will be with us for generations to come, and his mark on this planet will never be forgotten. He is survived by his 4 children, 9 grandchildren, and wife. Thank you all for the support and love. We may be quiet for a bit while we mourn his loss. We appreciate your understanding during this very sensitive time. Frank Suarez, Scientology, never missed an opportunity to get Frank to help Scientology the way Scientology wanted to be helped: cold hard cash. But when Frank needed genuine help, Scientology abandoned him. And Frank actually, in Puerto Rico, I think Puerto Rico is one of the cities that does not have their new big Scientology building purchased yet. But the building that Puerto Rico is in, Frank Suarez bought that building. That's right. There's only about 134 Scientology organizations in the world, and one of those organizations was purchased by Frank Suarez. That's how dedicated to Scientology Frank was. And at the risk of possibly getting some information wrong, I'm not going to tell you my understanding of how Manuel Suarez took advantage of and then abandoned his own father at the end of his life just to get as much of his money as possible and then leave him to die. I'm not going to give the details as I believe I know them, just because I don't want to misstate it. But that's who Manuel Suarez is. That's who Manuel Suarez is. Manuel Suarez, by the way, for those of you who watch my Clearwater protest live streams, there's a local Scientologist that drives a black wrapped Tesla Cybertruck. That's Manuel Suarez. If you see a black wrapped Tesla Cybertruck, that's the guy whose dad gave everything to Scientology, went all the way up the bridge, and then took his own life by jumping off of a building. For any under-the-radar Scientologists, you might know Wendy Edericks. Wendy Edericks was a famous Scientology OT8 field staff member. A field staff member, or an FSM, is a public Scientologist who usually earns a living by getting other people into Scientology and sort of being their Scientology mentor. Wendy Edericks was a famous, long-time OT8 FSM. Most Scientologists do not know that Wendy eventually had a psychotic break and took her own life. Most people don't know that. Most Scientologists don't know that. They know Wendy died a number of years ago. They don't know how she died. They don't know that she took her own life after having a psychotic break. Whitney Mills, another extremely tragic example of a young 40-year-old local Clearwater Scientologist, OT8, had a psychotic break. Scientology wasn't there for her. They kept her under watch and isolation for a while. When they're like, she's not getting better, they left her to her own devices to take her own life. That's Scientology for you folks. Okay. I actually want to read for you a couple parts out of this book. I'm already getting a little, it's hard for me to speak, but I'm going to try. Hold on, give me a sec here. All right. This is an excerpt from the book. Again, the book is called The Halfway Bridge. I don't know if that looks backwards on the screen right now. It probably does. The Halfway Bridge by Francisco Suarez. You can get it on Amazon. I've put a link in the description below, and I will try to post a comment as well if I can remember. Okay, the last years of Frank. According to third-party accounts, my father stayed for about 6 months on the Scientology cruise ship Freewinds, a place known for offering services to high-ranking members and handling specialized processes or particular situations. This ship remains anchored in the port of Aruba most of the time. During this extended stay on the ship, the year before his passing, all right, I'll try to keep it here. The year before his passing, concerns about his mental state reportedly arose. According to information that came to my attention, he began to experience psychotic and suicidal thoughts, which he reportedly communicated to the organization. At some point, he expressed that they should perhaps send him back to Puerto Rico or take stricter measures such as controlled isolation to manage what he himself described as a psychosis that was deeply affecting him. In Scientology, any matter, whether positive or negative, is handled internally. It is also common for network commerce. It is also common for network commerce to be practiced within this belief system, where members engage in bartering and make every effort to maintain relationships with other members of the organization. This is relevant to my father's story, as a doctor who was a member of Scientology would have more credibility than one who was not. Oh, okay, yeah. After returning from the ship, I heard that my father continued suffering from severe chronic insomnia, a decrease in his concentration abilities, memory loss, and suicidal thoughts. I had the fortune of seeing him on 2 occasions during his last year of life. Although at the time I was not fully aware of the magnitude and seriousness of his condition, his state of depression, something I observed closely with great sadness, deeply impacted me. I remember learning that he wasn't feeling well because he personally told me that he wasn't sleeping well. From that moment on, I tried to stay updated on his health as much as he allowed me to. However, my communication with others who were closer to him was non-existent, which made it difficult to fully understand his situation. The unexpected end. I will never forget the day my father visited me just a few months before his sudden departure. I watched him struggle to get out of his car, thin and moving slowly. It had been over a year since I'd last seen him, and I did not know what to think. He barely spoke, making any real conversation impossible. In a soft, hesitant voice, he asked me for a saucepan and said he could make one of his favorite dishes, huevos a la malagueña, if we wanted. Of course, I said yes. He stayed quiet, cooking alone for about 30 minutes, not saying a single word. I didn't know what to make of it. The way he moved, the way he barely engaged, it was unsettling, as if he had suffered a stroke. Trying to break the silence, I showed him a bathroom renovation I was working on, hoping to spark some conversation, but nothing. His response was minimal. Something was wrong. I want to make it clear that what I share here is solely my perception and personal opinion, based on what I knew and observed from my position. My communication with my father during the last year of his life was practically non-existent. It was as if he had disappeared from the face of the earth and suddenly reappeared gravely ill. In the final days of his life, his severe mental and physical health problems seemed to be deeply influenced by the secrecy and complexity of his own beliefs. It is important to note that this was a personal decision. He chose to believe in and be a part of Scientology, and to a large extent, he was responsible for his own well-being. Clearly, his devotion to these beliefs led him to avoid the traditional medical help he so desperately needed. Despite the terrible reputation that Scientology has worldwide, my father never stopped believing in it. That devotion, as I perceived it, may have conflicted with the possibility of receiving the type of help that could have benefited him. I never imagined that the distance I experienced during his last year of life would become permanent. Everything changed when I received a call early one morning from one of my siblings with the words, "He's gone." Our dear Frank, the obesity and health specialist, loved by so many, admired around the world for his charismatic personality, his excellent health content, a friend to many, husband, father, had lost his battle with his mental struggles and physical problems, jumping to his death from a high floor of a building in San Juan, Puerto Rico. Like many of us, Frank faced the challenges that life throws our way. Unfortunately, it is possible that his path was influenced by the beliefs of Scientology, a doctrine that seems to be on the verge of extinction. In moments of need, perhaps it offered him a distorted sense of hope. Or maybe they simply chose to turn their backs on him, pushing him away to further protect their already tarnished image and avoid any more negative press. Additionally, there's a possibility that he suffered from an undiagnosed extreme mental health issue, but we will never know for certain. No matter how sinister or critical my details may seem, my personal experience is that the belief my father chose to follow in his life strongly indoctrinates its members, especially those in higher ranks, making them believe they are beings beyond just a physical body, offering their catalog of solutions as the only possible option. There are several harmful cases related to the Scientology organization that bear similarities to what happened with my father. And he mentions Lisa McPherson, Kyle Brennan, and Whitney Mills. In these cases, critics of Scientology and some families have pointed to the possible influence of the organization in the lack of proper mental health care. However, the details and legal outcomes of these situations have varied. The area and subject of mental health is precisely one of the areas where Scientology stops just being something people believe and gets directly into life-destroying real-world consequences. Scientology thinks that psychiatry, psychology, and the entire field of mental health outside of Scientology, because Scientology considers that it is the only, in fact, true mental health, that all other forms of mental health are evil and dangerous, and they are strictly forbidden and banned in Scientology. You are not allowed to ever seek mental health treatment outside of Scientology for any reason whatsoever. This has resulted in so many lost lives. The sick irony is that if you have a history of mental instability, depression, suicidal ideation attempts, Scientology wants nothing to do with you. They keep you at arm's length. Scientology's slogan is, we're here to make the able more able. We're not here to waste our time with losers. Scientology doesn't really say that last sentence that way. But the phrase, Scientology makes the able more able, is the slogan of Scientology. Look it up. It really is. They say, we don't deal with the insane. But the problem is Scientologists go insane. And when they do, the best Scientology will do is send you out to some area, some remote area, and keep you in isolation without any communication with any human beings, because that's what L. Ron Hubbard said to do. They will not check you in a facility. There's no 5150s. There's no medication. There's no anything. There's isolation. Isolation. And they kept Frank Suarez isolated on their cruise ship, the Freewinds, getting an awful lot of money out of him in the process. Scientology could not help one of its highest level, wealthiest, and successful members. And when it came right down to it, they left him to die. Not before making sure his financial affairs were securely in the hands of his Scientologist offspring. Truly a disgusting story and a cautionary tale that I encourage everyone to read. So one more time, I'll show you. This is what it looks like on Amazon. It's called The Halfway Bridge, Frank Suarez and the Struggle Behind His Success. Memoirs of his eldest son, Francisco Suarez. All right, everyone. That is it for me tonight. Thank you for hanging out with me, and I'll talk to you tomorrow.
Okay. if you want to see my rock and roll songs, click right on this guitar. And if you want to see a different one of my videos, Oh Daddy Mama Love, then you could click right inside here. If you have subscribed or not, subscribe right here. Bye.